Welcome back to Lantern Insights. Today we're going to be looking at a very interesting game that I played with the mono blue list, kind of highlighting one of the shortcomings with this list, one of its problems, and then looking at how to play around that, how to, when the worst, basically like the worst possible thing happens, how to still play around it and be able to find a winning line. You may notice that I have Cursed Totem in my opening hand here, and so this is a post-board game. I'll show game one after this. But we're on the draw. We won game one against Hardened Scales, so we know what our opponent is on, and we keep this hand. I think it's very, very solid here. There are a few things I'm going to highlight in this game just when bringing in sideboard games, but I'll touch on them as we get to them. And just a reminder before we start to don't forget to subscribe if you like the content. It means a lot and it really helps out. Anyway, this opening hand here against Scales, this is beautiful. Witching Well can hopefully smooth our draw out. Whir can go find bridge, and we have Cursed Totem to shut down most of their other shenanigans that they can do. So they're going to lead on Ink Moth, plus they're playing this Soul Cleaver, which is a new artifact. It seems interesting in Scales. I don't know. I think they just have one to find with Urza Saga, but they happen to have it this game. So we're just going to lead on Codex Shredder here, drawing the third land. It's less important to find that third land, so we can kind of save Witching Well for a later turn when we are more desperate to dig for something else. And here they're going to play an Arcbound Ravager, but we have the Cursed Totem, so we're not really concerned at all with that. And drawing a second Whir of Invention here means we're going to be a bit slower getting our hand empty, but without Arcbound Ravager, it's less important that our hand is totally empty, as it's harder for them to move their +1/+1 counters around. So they're just going to equip to their Ravager, and they do destroy our Cursed Totem. So they have a Nature's Claim, which is going to grow their Ravager. Again, this is not something we care too much about. I'd rather them be using a Nature's Claim on a Cursed Totem than a Lantern or a Bridge later on, provided at least that provided that they find 1-power creatures that really matter. But their clock is fairly slow. I think especially drawing this seems much better as a finding it off Saga than just playing it out, and because there's probably a lot of games where you don't really want to see it. So we're going to play Saga. We put the other Saga to the bottom as we just want to be able to cast these Whir of Inventions. And so, yeah, we're going to play through here. They play a Saga of their own, which is not the end of the world when we have Bridge. However, they are going to be able to find Pithing Needle off of it, which is very hard for our deck to beat. And here, they just hit us for 1 with Ink Moth. I mean, even if they sacked everything, they'd still only be hitting us for 5, and then we'd be able to get Bridge down. And here, of course, we're just gonna let Saga go off. They're gonna make constructs, fire up Ink Moth, and this is when we are gonna get Bridge, kind of stop the Arcbound from attacking. And I believe even if they sack everything, they are just short of lethal with Ink Moth here, which is pretty fortunate. Sorry, I got Pithing Needle. We have the second Bridge for Whir of Invention. It was a bluff. Sorry, I was remembering it slightly wrong. We cast Whir for 3, hoping that they would use either Arcbound in response, or kind of, we didn't want them to know we're getting Ravager. Because of this equipment puts +1/+1 counters onto it anytime an artifact is put into the graveyard, meaning they're able to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're able to get a big Ink Moth. We definitely could have gone for Bridge here, but we'll go for Bridge next turn. And like, we have Lantern plus Bridge next turn anyway, and so I just thought this was a slightly safer line. It's probably still somewhat correct to grab Bridge there, but not the end of the world. We'll just go for it here. Grabbing grabbing Ensnaring Bridge. And with another Shredder on top, we basically have it locked down. However, they do get a Pithing Needle, naming Codex Shredder, like we talked about. And so we have no ways of dealing with this Pithing Needle. It's one of the weaknesses of the blue deck, and one of the reasons that I've talked about playing something like Raven Form, just as something in blue that exiles an artifact or destroys it. Just because, as you'll see here, we play out the cookbook, and I think cookbook's important here because it means like if we draw counter spells that we don't need, we can discard them. But that's about it. We do resolve a second Pithing Needle on Haywire Might. I think with Urza Saga, it's very likely that they have one, although perhaps the fact that they got Pithing Needle and not Haywire Might the first time means that they're less likely to have Haywire Might, but I still think it's a worthwhile card to name. And so here, because they have a Needle and Codex Shredder, all of our mill is going to be symmetrical. It's basically just Ghoulcaller's Bell milling both of us the same amount, which means we have to get to a position where we draw Academy Ruins. We can't mill it because we can't use Shredder to get it back. So at this point in the game, it's just finding Academy Ruins, and then we can mill both of us, but then put a Lantern or a Welding Jar on top of our library, and so that we will never mill out, but they will. It gets still very tight here, as we're basically stuck with max 1 mill rock for the rest of the game. And I may have got a touch aggressive milling here, as with 1 mill rock, it's much harder to maintain the lock. I think with these Witching Wells, they are going to come in handy if we can find a 4th land. So I was somewhat trying to find that 4th land. We saw an Emery and Needle, and I do kind of like having Emery here, just being able to get other things back. And that was the second teaching point from this video, where Nature's Claim, obviously we have to use Lantern to make them shuffle, but a Hangerback Walker is fine. One thing with Emery, where she's really sweet, but when you're bringing in Cursed Totem, I think I made a bit of a mistake sideboarding, bringing her in, just as you'll see here, I use Emery to bring back Cursed Totem, and then I can't use Emery anymore. So just Cursed Totem is not a symmetrical effect, and so they hang her back Walker here. I'm going to start going through it a bit quicker, but at this point it's basically with 1 mill rock you have to be a lot more conservative in when you're milling, so it's hard. We also want that 4th land to get back Witching Well. Like basically at this point most of what they do doesn't matter, and we do find that other land. Another bridge on top additionally is very strong. And yeah, as you see here, we've cast Cursed Totem, locked our Emery out. In this specific scenario, it's probably worth it, but I think in the future when sideboarding, we shouldn't bring in Emery in matchups that we also bring Cursed Totem in for. It's a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Like from this point, it's just a very slow, methodical game, just milling them out very slowly. We can use other copies of Lantern in order to mill them more aggressively, or not mill them, but control the top of their deck more aggressively. And with all these Needles, Cursed Totem, and Snaring Bridge, there's basically nothing that matters here. You know, they've already used 1 Nature's Claim, so they maybe have another one. Max they have 2. I think this game does end up playing out like very slowly, where you kind of want to mill them, almost never want to mill them, or maybe mill them like once, but it gets very hard at this point. So I won't show the rest of it. You kind of just mill them one at a time, ensuring that you never have to mill your own Academy Ruins, as if you have to mill your own Academy Ruins, you'll lose, because you'll notice we only have 27 cards and they have 35. So milling our Academy Ruins would be a loss for us. However, from this position, we are just able to, as you can see, we start getting some value off of these Witching Wells. It doesn't really matter at this point. I think I was just trying to get down to 0 cards in order to demonstrate to the opponent that we can just recycle with Academy Ruins. Yeah, I won't show the rest of the game. It's just us milling one at a time. But I think it's very important, and that's why you can basically never cut Ghoul Caller's Bell or Pixis. You have to always play at least one. It's good against Needle on Shredder, something like Leyline, giving them hexproof. It's just very, very essential to the deck. Yeah, basically nothing they do matters here. This was game 2, so we won the match here. But stick around and we'll show you game 1 as well. Game 1, we start on a pretty easy mulligan here. 5 lands. Yes, one of them is Saga, but Saga, there are very few decks that it can just solo, and not with a hand like this. This hand is much better. Obviously, Academy Ruins is going to hurt a bit with getting 3 blue for Whir of Invention. So we put it back. We kind of have all the main pieces we would want to whir for. I think it's somewhat likely that it just gets stuck in our hand with that approach. We run out Whir here, or Witching Well here, as we're looking for another land. And if we go well this turn, we can go Lantern Shredder next turn and then Bridge on turn 3. And we're basically in perfect shape right from the start. Again, they start with the Soul Cleaver, so I don't know if they were playing more than one or if they just drew it in their opener 2 games in a row. But seeing the Welding Jar, likely some artifact scales version of some sort. But we'll have turn 3 Bridge, and game 1 they basically it's just Walking Ballista that they would have to deal with that. They dump a good chunk of their hand here, but we are going to get empty-handed, and like from here it's very straightforward. I'll pass through, but it's essentially just how quickly can we get to a needle on Walking Ballista, and then are they playing something like Agatha's Soul Cauldron? That's essentially all we have to worry about. It was a bit aggressive drawing with the Mishra's Bauble there, where we could have gotten into a situation where we see double lands, but we're at 20. I don't think they have a kill from here, and we're just valuing that extra card. Was better than having a Bauble sitting on the battlefield. And so we're going to mill there. Obviously, end step milling them. They don't really have... The Ozolith is their only card that draws at instant speed, so it's all we have to play around. And from here, make some constructs. It doesn't really matter. This game was locked kind of right from the get-go. A very, very smooth hand. Not too interesting this game. They do play it out, but so we get a look at their whole deck, which somewhat doesn't really change our sideboarding decisions that are on fairly standard scales. So we'll take easy game 1 win. Game 2 was a bit more exciting. Obviously, if they resolve a Pithing Needle, it's quite good against us, and that is one area to address in the mono blue versions. Hope you enjoyed this more straightforward game, and be back tomorrow with another one.